Talk very well there. I'd like to call this meeting of the State Board of Higher Education to order at Jenkinson State. Could I have an approval? Roll call, please, first. Here.
Here.
Mr. Espegard?
Here.
Mr. Shaft?
Shaft is here, but the people on the phone can't hear anything.
Ms.
That's intentional.
Then hang up.
Ms. Nessett? Dr. Munski?
Dr. Munski is on the telephone and is having difficulty hearing despite raising the volume to the height.
Mr. Morton?
Here.
Mr. Hoffer?
Here.
Ms. Reichert? Here. Ms. Hoffer?
Here. All right, thank you, Christy. All right, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from March 27th, 2014?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Can you hear anything?
They can't hear you.
I'm
Second.
not able to hear anything.
Okay, hold on a second here. We need to get the technology.
I would move to approve the amended minutes.
Second?
Second.
Christy?
Dr. Johnstead?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffer?
Yes.
Ms. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Espegard?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mr. Shaft?
Shaft votes yes.
Board Chair Diedrich?
Yes. Second item on the agenda, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Espegard?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mr. Shaft?
Shaft votes yes.
Dr. Johnstead?
Yes.
Ms. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffer?
Yes.
Board Chair Diedrich?
Yes. Okay. Moving on to the board chair's report. Once again, apologize for the delay here. Hopefully that we won't have any more issues with the technology, but we know that always happens. Not always, but it does happen. So I wanted to welcome everybody in the room and those of you that are following on the webcast and say that we're very thankful to D.C. Costin and his team at Jenkinson State for their hospitality. But most importantly, on behalf of the board, I would like to express our deep condolences to the family and friends of Dan Buhner, a Valley City State student who lost his life in a tragic accident this week. Dr. Shirley, would you please share a few words?
Thank you. Dan Buhner was a senior business administration major at Valley City State, started to get from the baseball team. And we had a really powerful evening last night. We had a memorial service on campus for him. There was about 400 people there. It's a difficult week, obviously, for the campus and for Dan's family and friends. And times like this, I think you really see campuses pull together, and particularly campuses of the size of a Valley City State. And so it's been heartening to see that support and folks coming together. And so thanks for your words this morning, and thanks to the other campuses around the state for their support as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Shirley. You know, and I know that we've had a little bit of delay here, and I do have some comments from the chair, but right now it doesn't even seem appropriate. I'm feeling a little bit choked up, and I think I'm just going to pass on this. So, Chancellor.
Madam Chair, thank you. To begin with, just a quick update on the Higher Learning Commission visit that will begin on Monday and Tuesday. This is an incredibly important visit for us. I have said repeatedly that I cannot overestimate the importance of this visit. It is finally coming. You asked me and appointed me as your acting chancellor in June of last summer, and this has been hanging over our heads since then. So it's really going to be good. We're delighted that day has come and the Higher Learning Commission will come. There has been an agenda sent out of the visits that they have asked for. They will meet with groups of the staff and the presidents and the board and a group of legislators on Tuesday. Preparatory to that visit, we have asked the Association of Governing Boards to conduct a training session this afternoon, and really appreciate everybody's participation in that training session. And for those of you that can call in, please call in. And we're going to be talking about issues like accreditation and what the expectations are of a Higher Learning Commission visit, and particularly the criteria that the Higher Learning Commission is looking at relative to a complaint that was filed last year. We have, and for introductions here, we have in our audience right now Dr. Meryl Schwartz and Mr. Clyde Allen. And thank you very much for coming in. She flew in from Washington, D.C. and got here late last night, and Clyde drove over from Moorhead, I believe. And they're here to conduct the training this afternoon, and we're looking forward to the training, and we're looking forward to the visit next Monday and Tuesday. And right now, what I would like to do is highlight one of the institutional initiatives that's going on. We've taken this as a part of our normal board meeting so that the board and public are well aware of the wonderful things that are going on in the university system and at each one of our institutions. And today I had asked President Costin if we might get an update on the Theodore Roosevelt Center that's going through a planning process right now. And Ms. Sharon Kilzer and Mr. Clay Jenkinson will now come forward and give a presentation on what's happening at the Teddy Roosevelt Center here at Dickinson State University.
Thank you, Dr. Scogin. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the State Board. We're delighted to be able to visit with you today. The State Board of Higher Education approved the Theodore Roosevelt Center in September of 2009. And since that time, we have, we believe, done good work. That's a credit both to the state of North Dakota and to our university system. The Theodore Roosevelt Center at Dickinson State University is creating the only comprehensive online collection of the documents and artifacts of an American president. These materials are accessible to anyone on any device with an internet connection. Faculty and students who might have had limited access to archives of primary resources now have a rich resource for original research. When I last spoke with the board in September of 2011, we were preparing to launch our website and digital library, and we had nearly 5,000 documents processed. I'm pleased to report that as of this morning, we have nearly 21,000 documents available. These materials cover the entire span of Theodore Roosevelt's life, and they comprise a wide variety of formats, from photographs, political cartoons, letters, and speeches, to also some audio and video materials of Theodore Roosevelt. We've brought a few samples of those, and they're displayed around the room here for you to enjoy during your breaks or at lunch. I hope you'll take a few minutes to consider not only the content of the items, but the high level of quality that's represented in the digital library. To be able to enlarge documents to this level and still have the quality image that you see here is quite remarkable. So who is using this resource? In the materials I've provided for you, you'll find a list of both popular and scholarly requests to which we've responded. And I'd like to highlight just a couple of items from within and outside of academia. First, there are some recent publications that have acknowledged the Theodore Roosevelt Center as a source for their work. Dr. Lewis Gould, a renowned historian of TR's presidency, recently published this book on Edith Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt's second wife, and this was part of the First Ladies series. Dr. Gould, in his acknowledgments, writes about Dr. Stacy Cordery, who served as a fellow here at the Theodore Roosevelt Center. And he says, Dr. Cordery acted as a liaison with the Theodore Roosevelt Center at Dickinson State University in North Dakota to make digitized documents from the Roosevelt papers available to me in a very timely manner. So just a really great endorsement from a very well-renowned historian. A newer publication, a little more recent than that, Monica Rico is a young professor at Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin. And this is her first book based on her doctoral dissertation. It's called Nature's Noblemen. We're particularly excited about this one. It's the first that we're aware of in which we appear in the citations. And in this case, while Dr. Gould is a regular correspondent with our staff, we had not met Dr. Rico, or were not even aware of her until the book was published. I met her at a historians conference in Arizona last fall and learned about her work. So our work is beginning to influence Roosevelt scholarship and publications about Roosevelt's era, but also outside of academia, we've been consulted and referenced by a wide variety of groups. We were cited on the BBC News website in a story regarding the teddy bear, and that led to thousands of hits on our website coming from the UK. And NFL Films sought us out looking for video footage of TR to include in a Super Sundays series. Most recently, one of the photographs in our digital library was posted to reddit.com, a popular social networking site, and we received tens of thousands of hits in just a few minutes at our website. Every person who visits the website and the digital library gets a glimpse of North Dakota. And we're very proud of that, to highlight both Dickinson State University and the state of North Dakota through our work. So because of the success we've already achieved, the state legislature has issued a challenge to us that has opened up new possibilities, and I'll turn it over to Clay to discuss those.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to accommodate this little report. We're so glad you're on campus. If you have time while you're here, come up to the Roosevelt Center. We have a kiosk there in the Stockton Library. There's a display, and you'll see some of our digital documents around this room. They're just a tiny fraction of what we have, but let me pick up where Sharon left off. We had an idea that we would digitize all of Roosevelt's papers. When we created that idea, we weren't certain of how big this would become, and if we had known, we might not have done it because it is such a gigantic undertaking. We already have more than 1 million pages of Roosevelt in our digital archive. We've only been able to process a little over 21,000 of them with metadata, but we will get all of this done, and we continue to cast the net. So there are 13 presidential libraries. Presidential libraries began with Herbert Hoover. They hadn't been dreamed of before that, and every president since Herbert Hoover has one. And now there's some backfilling for earlier presidents, Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, Woodrow Wilson, and others. And so we decided that we would create the world's most comprehensive digital presidential papers project. And if we succeed, and we will, within a decade, we will have the only digitized presidential national library in the country. No other library is even contemplating this. The closest is the Kennedy Library, and they have spent several tens of millions of dollars to digitize Kennedy's records and are virtually giving up in despair at the volume of materials that the Kennedy administration represents. So if we can achieve this, we will not only have the first comprehensive electronic digital national presidential library in the United States, but we will become the template for other projects of this sort. And already we're getting requests for information and how we have gone about this and what sort of pitfalls to avoid. Our partners are the Library of Congress, which has the mother lode of Rooseveltiana, but also Harvard University and the National Park System, including 6 of its TR-related sites. The 2 principal ones are the birthplace in Lower Manhattan and Sagamore Hill. And so those 3 entities, the National Park Service, the Library of Congress, and Harvard, provide perhaps 90% of all of Roosevelt's documents, but the last 10% will still come to 400,000 or 500,000 or 600,000 items in Glendive and Miles City and Denver. Other partners include the Huntington Library, the Newberry, the Denver Public Library, and so on. So that's where we are with this. But the legislature decided to reward this great success by offering us this challenge. If we could raise $3 million, they would provide up to $12 million in match so that we could create a freestanding facility here in Jenkinson, North Dakota. We've hired a national consultancy firm to help us, and we're well along the way with that. Our fundraising is underway, and we expect to succeed. Now, what we're discovering is that once you begin to really envision a national entity of this sort, it's probably more than a $15 million project. But we will face that as we come. Our plan is to produce a smart, intelligent, thoughtful, spirit of place-based facility, and to move forward decade by decade as we become more important in the national presidential arena. Let me just, before we close, just say a couple of things about what this means. Two things in particular. This visualizes certain documents. When you read a transcript in a book of Roosevelt's letters, you get a certain experience. You get the gist of what he was saying. But if you can actually see that document, as you can now because of the work that we're doing, it changes everything. One of our discoveries was a series of 16 letters that Roosevelt wrote to his first wife, Alice, during his time in North Dakota when he first came out to Dakota Territory in September of 1883. These letters were in Harvard, others had used them, but only in a small way, and we were the first to digitize them, and I have them. You'll see them up on the kiosk. This is a 4-page letter. It's a marvelous scan of this, and let me just read you a couple of sentences. September 8, 1883, so the day after he first arrived in Dakota Territory. He says, "Darling wifey, yesterday evening I took the 6 o'clock train from Bismarck and sat up till 10 playing whist with a party of jolly young Englishmen. Then I tumbled into my bunk and at 2 o'clock tumbled out at Little Missouri Station. It was bitterly cold, and it was some time before groping about among the 4 or 5 shanties which formed the town, in quotation marks, I found the low, small building called the hotel. There were no lights, but vigorous pounding on the door at last awakened the cursing landlord," and so on. Well, first of all, it's just marvelous to see his penmanship and to see him writing "Dear Wifey" to his beloved first wife, Alice. But also, this corrects 2 mistakes in the Roosevelt record. Most historians have said he arrived at 3 a.m. He says it was 2, a small matter, but an important one. And almost everyone says it was hot, a hot, sultry, dry September day in the Badlands. He says it was cold. And so these sorts of discoveries, however minor they might seem at any given moment, are going to change the culture of Roosevelt studies, not just in North Dakota and in the United States, but for Roosevelt studies and presidential studies everywhere. So that's one of the things that we can do. The other thing that's so important is we can knit things together that have been separated. So Roosevelt had a long correspondence with John Hay, his Secretary of State. Those letters are in 4 or 5 archives. If you're a historian, you have to go to the Massachusetts Historical Society and to the Library of Congress and to Harvard and to the New York Public Library to see them. We are electronically knitting them back together in chronological order so you can follow these key relationships that Roosevelt had through the course of his life. It's essentially an electronic miracle. And it not only means we are going to achieve our goal of the first comprehensive electronic national presidential library here in Jenkinson, North Dakota, a monument to this university and to the state system, but we are also going to help change the way scholarship is done. We just imagine the assistant professor at a place like Wayne State University in Nebraska who doesn't have travel funds in her department. She would have had to go to Harvard and Yale and Washington, D.C. and Pasadena to find out these records. Now in her bathrobe, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and searchable, she can study Theodore Roosevelt. And this will empower not only credentialed scholars, but amateurs of every sort to take history more seriously. So we couldn't be more excited about what we're doing. We're going to raise the $3 million, and we're going to change the culture of Theodore Roosevelt studies, not just here, but elsewhere. Sharon?
As we look at this new phase in our development, we think about the kinds of materials that are coming to us from people becoming interested in our work. And I brought just a few samples of those. We have one of the original magazines in which Theodore Roosevelt's articles were published. We also have on the website in the digital library his handwritten draft of that essay. So you can see how things that he originally wrote and changes he made and edits. It's a fascinating process to have the final document, but to have the draft as well. We also have a collection of campaign buttons and memorabilia from his various presidential campaigns. This is one from 1904 with Charles Fairbanks as his vice presidential candidate. And we have a small collection of these. We have acquired a couple of pieces of sheet music, and this is a really lovely item. The sheet music is called North Dakota, Teddy Roosevelt's West. This is the original piece that was published in the 1920s, I believe, shortly after Roosevelt's death. This one was published in the 1950s after the first oil well was discovered in North Dakota, and you can see the oil wells here. The chorus of the song says, with hidden treasure, wealth untold, North Dakota welcomes you. That was in the original, but that was the reason that it was republished once oil was discovered here. So that's an interesting find, and these are the original publications. So we've had a number of Roosevelt enthusiasts and collectors who have contacted us about the possibility of depositing their materials here. So the possibilities are endless for our growth and development at this stage.
Our collection of physical objects is small for the moment, but it's surprising how many people are now approaching us. We've had this modest little work that we've been doing to digitize Roosevelt, and now papers are coming to us, and collectors are calling us to donate things. I got a call from a man named Gene Fisher in Fargo just 2 days ago saying, I have a second edition of the complete Roosevelt works. I'd like to give it to the Theodore Roosevelt Center. And so people are finding us from all over the country, even all over the world, and we're just getting started. So here's what we need. We know this project is going to become a major asset to the state of North Dakota. It's going to be housed at Dickinson State University, but it's in a sense bigger than Dickinson. All the college presidents and their institutions, we hope, will become advocates of this and will be involved. There are papers in Fargo, papers in Grand Forks, papers in Devils Lake, papers in Williston. And we want the state board to think well of what we're doing and to want us to succeed, because we've discovered that this is bigger than the dream that we had, and it's going to take major state, local, and national resources to make it happen. But when it happens, we're going to be one of the national presidential libraries, and people are going to come here by the tens of thousands, and they're going to consult our materials by the tens of millions. And so we couldn't be happier to be able to report that to all of you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. And you have a workshop or something too. Didn't you have quite a number of people come? Was it just this last summer or the year before?
Dr. Dietrich, you were here in December, and we were able to show you a little bit about what we're doing in Stockton Library. Every year we have a symposium, a public humanities 3-day symposium on the campus of Dickinson State. We've had virtually all of the well-known names in Roosevelt studies come here, from H.W. Brands, a biographer of Roosevelt, to Stacy Cordery, et cetera. People have come from Europe to participate in these, and every scholar who comes here says exactly the same thing when they leave. They say, oh, I wish I had come to North Dakota before I wrote my book, because I didn't do justice to the Badlands, and I didn't do justice to what Roosevelt meant when he said in 1910 in Fargo, I would never have been the president of the United States had it not been for my time in North Dakota. So our 10th Public Humanities Symposium is coming in September. You should all come out for it. Larry, you should set something up. And we would love to host you here and show you what we do. But these are not for academics. These are not academic conferences. These are for the public. We have K through 12 students, university students, our own TR Scholars Honors Program students participate. And 400 or 500 people come from North Dakota and beyond to participate in this annual event. And we disseminate it. We stream everything that we do and archive every lecture.
Thank you. It's very exciting.
Has Doris Kern been here yet?
We have a standing invitation for Doris Kern's Goodwin, and if any one of you will give us the $50,000 stipend, we shall bring her. We want her to come because in her book, Bully, the new book about Taft and Roosevelt, she gives short shrift to Roosevelt's time in the Badlands, and there are errors. And so we're trying to decide what the right way to approach her is, to say, you might have written a better chapter on North Dakota had you come to one of our conferences at a cut rate. But we'll see if that appeals to the great Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Madam President?
Yes, Jennifer.
Because we're streamed live, and I did this real quick off of your sheet,
website.
I looked up the URL, and it's a fabulous site. And so for all of you that are listening, it's theodorerooseveltcenter.org.
Yeah, fantastic.
TheodoreRooseveltCenter.org. We worked hard to produce a website that will continue to grow with the breathtaking electronic changes that are occurring on the internet, as you know. And so the hardest thing is not getting into a cul-de-sac with these projects.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Clay and Sharon. Madam Chair and members of the board, when you tie together this very, very exciting project with the very exciting things that the mayor was talking about going on out here in Jenkinson right now, we can really see and feel how much Western North Dakota is changing and how important we are in a number of conversations, not just about energy, but about scholarship and historical research, and that Dickinson State University is going to play an important role as that culture changes that Mr. Jenkinson was talking about. Yeah. So, Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay. It looks like we have the North Dakota Student Association report. Jennifer Vetter.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. This will be my last report to you as my term ends on April 30th, and our president-elect, Connor Swanson, who's sitting next to me, Connor, wave, will be taking over on May 1st. I'm excited to see what he and the next group of officers for NDSA will accomplish in the next year, especially with the legislative session. For my report today, I'd just like to touch on a couple things that we're working on this upcoming weekend at our meeting at Bismarck State, and then also just highlight the top 3 accomplishments I see from NDSA this year. So this weekend we're meeting at Bismarck State, and we'll be discussing open textbooks or open source educational resources. We also will be hopefully talking about merit-based scholarships and need-based scholarships as well to help prepare us for the next legislative session and get our finish up our research that we started at the beginning of the year. And we also will be electing a couple other positions and appointing Connor's kind of support staff that are the PR, the web coordinator, a lobbyist, and a chief of staff, which is a new position for the organization. And we also do our NDSA awards, which one goes to the most dedicated delegate and another goes to the student advocate of the year. And to summarize the year in whole, I would say our top 3 accomplishments would be: first, we haven't had a strategic plan in our organization for a few years, so we did that, and I passed that out this last fall to all of you. So really getting that done and proceeding with that plan and actually implementing it is one of, in my opinion, one of the top accomplishments we've done this year. The second would be we started a survey about student affordability, and we've already got great feedback from that. I'll be sharing that with the Chancellor in this next week, and Connor will follow up with all of you with our final results. But we've had a little over 2,000 survey respondents of students, and we had open comment boxes, and a lot of those comments are very helpful. And then my third biggest accomplishment I see from the organization this year is the relationship that we've rebuilt with the systems office and the state board. I feel last year that relationship was a little strained, and this year I feel that we've been able to have open dialogue with the systems office, open dialogue with the board about issues concerning students. So that's a major accomplishment for us. And that concludes my report, unless there's any questions for me.
Board members, any questions for Jennifer? I just want to say thank you so much for your leadership this past year. It's been fun working with you.
It's been a pleasure.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
If I may just add, it has been a delight to work with Jen on a number of issues that I think that we will see now come to fruition during this next legislative session. After all, this is about students, and to be able to interact with students like I've been able to interact with the NDSA through Jen has been just really a joy. And just one note, as long as we're in Western North Dakota, I should add that Connor's actually from Bowman. So the president of NDSA the year is a Western North Dakotan as well, and I look forward to working with him.
Yeah. Welcome, Connor. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Munski. Can we have the CCF report, please?
Can you hear me, President Diedrich?
Yes, we can.
I have already submitted electronically the report of the Council of College Representatives, and if it is appropriate, I will read it into the record.
That sounds good.
The Council of College Faculties has met twice since the last NDUS State Board of Higher Education meeting. The regularly scheduled meeting of CCF was held by teleconference on April 8, 2014. In addition to the reports regarding AAC by Dr. Quijano and NDUS State Board of Higher Education by myself, the topics covered were updates regarding the NDUS task force committees on which CCF has representation. These are remedial development education via grade 12 of North Dakota Public P12 schools, represented by Dr. Russ, who I hope is in the audience today because she is from Jenkinson State, and I was needing to recognize Dr. Quijano, who I also hope is in the audience. He is the incoming president from Jenkinson State, chair for the Jenkinson State University. The other committees are best practices in remedial development education. Dr. Paschke, who comes out of Mayville State University in the beautiful Goose River Valley. And then, of course, from the wonderful Valley of the Souris, Dr. Paul Markell from Minot State, representing CCF on admissions for student success. Other topics discussed that day were Family Medical Leave Act's implications for various campuses within the North Dakota University system. The resolution regarding HC 3013, Open Resources for Education, was reviewed. You should already have that from other sources, but let's read it again. The CCF recognizes technological advances may influence how we traditionally view the educational process and asks the legislature to proactively support open resource initiatives with funding. CCF affirms that faculty should be sensitive to the rising cost of textbooks whenever possible. However, the CCF affirms that the choice of textbooks and any other course-related materials must be faculty-based and at the faculty member's discretion for provision of the best course possible. The CCF requests the legislature and the State Board of Higher Education affirm the statement. Also discussed that day were Permanent Research Fund, ongoing discussions regarding the North Dakota University System proposed all-faculty conference, a dissemination of the survey to determine faculty interest and participation for what would not be an annual event, but an occasional event, the time, location of said event, and identification of key topics for breakout sessions. Also, development of sources of funding, both internal, but more crucially, external to the North Dakota University system. Also discussed that day was participation at upcoming meetings of North Dakota University System State Board of Higher Education and of the North Dakota Interim Legislative Committee. The notice was also given that the last CCF meeting of the year will be Tuesday, May 6, 2014. The CCF also met in special session on April 15th to hear and to discuss the materials regarding the Admissions for Student Success Task Force. Unfortunately, the day that we had our CCF meeting, the meeting for that task force was scheduled at the same time, and I would like to respectfully suggest that perhaps there should be better scheduling of all meetings so there would not be said overlaps, because we missed Dr. Markell that day and had to have a second meeting. Finally, the CCF executive needs to correct the misinformation that unintentionally disseminated to AACs through the North Dakota University System Central Office regarding the aspirations of the faculty-based body to have face-to-face meetings on a more regular basis. CCF is seeking to have at least one face-to-face day-long meeting each semester and a third face-to-face meeting for half-day to day-long strategic planning session that could occur in conjunction with other bodies, example, the AAC or the NDUSD, Board of Higher Education. CCF has never sought to have a monthly face-to-face meeting in the same fashion as a body such as NDSA or even the AAC. Also, there is a need for further discussion as to how to develop a win-win approach for a statewide all-faculty conference that could occur on a biennial or triennial cycle of scheduling and in conjunction with other related bodies. This concludes what I have submitted electronically, now has been read into the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Munski.
A point of personal privilege, Dr. Diedrich.
Yes, Dr.
I
Munski?
will be departing shortly for a workforce safety and insurance mandated medical appointment. So I regret that I must be gone, but it is my intention to resume being part of the teleconference as soon as I am either released from Altru or leave further rehabilitation for the carpal tunnel syndrome.
Okay,
So
thank you very much.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. If I just might add on to the one of the topics that Dr. Munski brought up, and just so the board is well aware of this, 2 days ago we met with the Legislative Interim Higher Ed Funding Committee, and at that meeting, Dr. Tanya Spilovoy made a presentation on open resources and distance learning, and Dr. Paul Markell was there and was able to express the same resolution that Dr. Munski just read to you about faculty concerns that faculty stay in control of the selection of learning materials, and we're completely in support of that position. And so that has now been expressed to the board here today by Dr. Munski, and Dr. Markell expressed that to the Legislative Committee 2 days ago. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Scogan. Okay, moving on to board business. I feel like I can't look at you because I have to be so close to this microphone. I apologize for that.
Ms. Hoffert's report first, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry. How terrible of me. Go ahead, Ms. Hofferth.
Thank you, President Diedrich. The State Staff Senate met on Monday, April 21st via Ivan. And our business, we have nominations open for Vice President, President-elect. We discussed the new bylaws. There were some changes made to the bylaws. I'm happy to report that we now have 12 bodies as part of our State Staff Senate. The 11 institutions each have a staff senate, and the 12th is the system office and the, I'm going to say the word wrong. It used to be SITS. So, CTSO, thank you. So we now have 12 voting bodies on our staff senate. A couple of highlights for you from your staff senates. Dakota College of Botno is looking at having a vendor fair to raise staff senate funds that they can then donate on to other worthy organizations. And they're looking at a welcoming program for new employees where they can each mentor someone as they come in and take them around their campus to learn the ropes. Jenkinson has a brown bag lunch scheduled to talk about Measure 3, which I'd like to thank Linda Donlin and her group for coming up with a short Measure 3 talking point that we can use. They are also having a listserv blog guidelines for their employees. Lake Region is working on a bylaws committee to strengthen their staff senate. And they're looking at varied summer hours for some of their staff. Mayville is in the process of reviewing their Pride scholarship applications and are awaiting NDUS approval for the bike rental program. Minot State last year had the Power of 100 project, and they raised $1,547 from a silent auction. This year, their proceeds are going to the Minot Food Pantry. They are also wanting the good works of the Power of 100 to continue and are sponsoring September as a month of community service. They have $200 scholarships, two $100 scholarships for staff and dependents. NDSU held Staff Appreciation Day. They're in their recruitment phase for upcoming elections. They're having a staff senate relay for life team. They have a representative on the provost search committee. UND is having a walking tour of 6 different centers on campus, and I'm not going to remember them all, but there's the Women's Center, the International Center, the Native American Center, and so on. And so they're sponsoring a tour where people can walk and see all of the centers and get acquainted with them. They have a spring fling May 1st that staff are invited to celebrate the end of the academic year. I'd really like to highlight this. There's a board, it's called COAS, it's state employees. And the new elections were held, and the president and the vice president are both from UND. So congratulations to Kim Keeley and Shannon Miedema, as they're going to be representing all of the staff across the state of North Dakota, and they're both from our institutions. And that would conclude my report, unless there's any questions.
Any questions? And I apologize for moving forward. Next on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anybody who would like to speak to the board? Okay, seeing none, we will move forward. Okay, now we will get to the board business. The State Board of Higher Education Academic and Student Affairs Committee met on April 9th at 1 o'clock by conference call. As you can see on the agenda, we discussed the tenure of a number of institutions. We had some provisional tenure, and also NDSU's request for a graduate certificate program, and Dakota College of Botano's request, and NDSCS's request, which is all in your packet. If I could have a motion, we'll start with item number 9 for the tenure, and I have a proposed motion here. Motion to approve all recommendations for tenure effective for the academic year of 2014-15 as submitted by Bismarck State College, Dickinson State University, Minot State University, North Dakota State College of Science, North Dakota State University, and the University of North Dakota, and Valley City State University. Do I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Ms. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Schaaf?
Schaaf votes yes.
Mr. Espegard? Mr. Espegard? Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffer?
Yes.
Dr. Johnstad?
Yes.
Board Chair Diedrich?
Yes. Okay. Item 10, provisional tenure. This motion is to approve provisionally all recommendations for tenure by Valley City State University for faculty who are in the process of completing their requirements for earning terminal degrees and filing official documentation of the same with Valley City State University prior to the close of the spring 2014 semester. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Mr. Hoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Espegard? Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Dr. Johnstad?
Yes.
Mr. Schaaf?
Schaaf votes yes.
Ms. Reichert?
Yes.
Board Chair Diedrich?
Diedrich votes yes. Okay. As the committee's consent agenda, we had the Stage 2 new programs for NDSU, Dakota College Botano, and also NDSCS. Does anybody want any of those pulled? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Espegard, Mr. Morton,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffer,
Yes.
Dr. Jelmstad,
Yes.
Ms. Reichert,
Yes.
Mr. Schaff,
Shaft votes yes.
Board Chair Diedrich.
Yes, thank you. During our meeting that day, there were 2 other academic requests that came from NDSU, and the committee decided that they would like a little bit more information from Dr. Bashani on these 2 items. Dr. Bashani?
Thank you, Dr. Diedrich and board members. The first one is a particularly exciting one to share a little information with you about. I'm sending around what turned out to be a wonderful coincidence, an article, an AP article that was done, I don't know, the interview was probably a week or so ago, but it just got posted to the AP yesterday or last evening. And from the Google search pings that I'm getting, it's already getting picked up and spread around the nation. To backtrack on that, and as I, at the risk of sounding dramatic, I think most people that are knowledgeable about world politics would agree that the future wars of the world will not be about land, they'll not be about religion, they'll not be about politics, they'll be about food and water. Basic human survival, and securing and assuring the safety of food supplies is going to become a critical world need, and supplying food obviously will be a critical world need. NDSU about 2 years ago recognized that was not only an emerging priority both in the U.S. and worldwide, but that it's very much in sync with the main economic driver of our state, which is agriculture. And that we had the opportunity to be at the cutting edge of food safety and security research with the opportunity not only to bring resources, but national and international attention to NDSU. By great fortune and a personal relationship that started with our provost, Bruce Rayford, we were successful in recruiting Clytus Shetty from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Dr. Shetty is recognized as the national expert on food safety and security in the U.S. and is one of the top ranked researchers worldwide. And it's a little entertaining for me because it's like something from you'd see in a movie of this famous researcher leaves one institution and all these semis and graduate students and research dollars followed him to North Dakota. He became very engaged with our state because NDSU is very much in alignment with his research and his priorities. He sees us as a major provider of commodities. North Dakota now leads in 9 of the 14 major commodities in the United States. North Dakota is leading in the production of 9 of those. He saw our past research efforts. It all fit together for him, and he was very enthusiastic about not only coming to NDSU, but bringing what I suspect will be an increasing flow of some of the best and brightest graduate students and researchers in the world. And that's not a grandiose statement. I would anticipate the flow of graduate students we will be bringing to NDSU in the future will not be tens. It'll probably be hundreds, if not thousands, because we are getting ahead of the curve on this topic. Dr. Shetty is also being very strategic on the people he is recruiting to bring to our state across the board of the programs at NDSU, looking for people that were instructed in English so that we don't have the English barriers that sometimes plague international students, and are coming from countries with flexible immigration laws so that after we educate them, they can stay in the United States and preferably in North Dakota and become part of an emerging workforce and worldwide initiative. To say this is on parallel with the UAS program that North Dakota is also hosting would be fair, if not the chance for this ultimately to make that UAS initiative pale in comparison, because of the personal implications of this. I'm sorry to give you that long-winded explanation to the request, but I think it's important for you to see that this has been a process building now for several years. And as the article in AP highlights, Dr. Shetty is very excited about coming to you with a proposal to formalize a center along these lines, bringing together both the graduates, students, the researchers, and the majors and programs that already exist at NDSU, and package them in a new and recognizable institute that we believe will bring quite a bit of attention to us. I have to, with all that, apologize to the board because apparently there was some concern on some wording in the request, although it was unanimously approved by the Academic Affairs Council, because they see these things, they know this story that I just gave you. In rereading it, I realized that there's some wording that one or two words probably were not well chosen and might have led you to the belief that this is a program that's already started and now we're coming back to you for approval. And the line that I pulled out along those lines is a new director has been hired for the Institute. The director, Dr. Shetty, was hired as a researcher who would become the director of the Institute if you approve the Institute. And I do want to apologize for that because I appreciate it puts the board in an awkward position when it appears that institutions are coming asking for approval after the fact. That's absolutely not the case. And again, Dr. Shetty, to illustrate that, at several junctures in the AP story references that if the board approves, then the center and institute will begin. With that explanation, I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Bashani. This is very exciting. Board members, do you have any questions? I think.
Is he on campus already? Is he on campus now?
Oh, yes, he's been here almost 2 years now. The first year has been spent primarily promoting the disciplines and opportunity for instruction at NDSU to students internationally who are interested in food and food production. That will really take off then. As a matter of fact, when he sent me the article, he was in Paris on his way to India. And that's how excited he is in the middle of the night. He's sending articles about the AP. The Institute will kind of be the final gem under the assumption that you approve it today. But he's been at work for quite a while now.
Just for my own edification, will he be? Is the apartment a part of the College of Ag or the College of Science and Math?
Its appointment is in the College of Agriculture.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I should clarify, I'm sorry,
Sure.
Primarily in the College of Agriculture. He also has an associate vice president title involving his international relations, and because of his connections worldwide, we wanted to take advantage of that as well. But his academic appointment is in Ag.
Okay.
Sounds very good. Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. What I would like to do is actually have you address the second item also, and then we will come back and take our vote on. It was the request for undergraduate certificate program in apparel and retail
merchandising and design.
Yes.
A little less global in scope.
Yes.
This is a program, I think it probably pretty well reads for itself. Same problem that I had to apologize on the last one. I'll have to do it again on this one, and I hope you'll accept my mea culpa on that. Again, fully supported unanimously by the Academic Affairs Council. They understood what was going on here. But again, poor choice of wording would have led you to perhaps believe that the program had already started and we're coming back for approval. What was started was the courses that would make up the program. We wanted to make sure, although we were hearing a demand from the industry sector, we wanted to make sure there was going to be a demand by students. So the courses which would become part of this certificate were offered as, in a sense, as a test to make sure that it would be student interest. There absolutely was student interest, so that's why the proposal was then brought to you to create an amalgamated, if you will, certificate program, and with your approval, we'd like to move forward on that as well.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, so board members, do I have a motion to approve?
Also move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair, just for clarification, is that motion for both of those approvals?
I was hoping that we could put them together as a consent, but thank you for the clarification. So
The motion is for both.
Yep, so we can do for 10, whatever, 12 and 13. So, okay.
Ms. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Shaft?
Shaft votes yes.
Mr. Espegard?
Duaine votes yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffer?
Yes.
Dr. Jelmstead?
Yes.
Board Chair Diedrich?
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Brashani. Okay, State Board of Higher Education Budget and Finance Committee recommendations. Chair Espegard?
Yes, can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Yes, I can.
Okay, Madam Chair, your committee met last week. The minutes, I believe, are before you. We met last week. The motions for approval are also on the agenda. We request that they be approved at this meeting. We will be meeting a couple of times in May to work on the 2015 and 17 budgets and have a full report for the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Your report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair Espegard. Do we have a motion to approve item 14?
So moved.
I'll make the motion.
Oh, okay, thank you. Second.
A second.
Thank you.
Dr. Jelmstead?
Yes.
Ms. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Shaft?
Shaft votes yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Espegard?
Yes.
Board Chair Diedrich?
Diedrich votes yes. Mr. Espegard, during that meeting, I had the opportunity to sit in, and I thank you for inviting me. You had mentioned some concerns over the EERC in Grand Forks. Would you care to share anything with the board about those concerns?
Yeah, our responsibility is to look at variances that may have existed in the budget, and most of the variances, for virtually all of the variances, are easily explainable and so forth. There are just a couple that we asked for further information, and we were given that information at the meeting. There was a couple of them at UND. The one that still is going to be reported back with their agreement is the one with the ERC, which is running at a deficit, quite a large deficit, and they admitted in their variance plan that they had set a plan up, but the plan was not working, and so we just asked for further clarification, and they'll come to the next meeting with a more definite plan as to how to reduce the deficit that's going forward. It was reaching millions of $2 million, and like I say, it's the board's responsibility to report those and to see if there's a plan to eliminate those kinds of deficits.
So would it be possible for us to ask? Oh, excuse me.
She did a good job to explain, and she'll be at our next meeting as well.
Okay. All right. So is there any need for us to ask Dr. Kelly to request a specific plan, or have you already done that?
We asked Ms. Brecky, Alice Brecky, to do that, and I'm sure she's taken care of it. She was at our meeting, and if she has not taken care of it, I'm sure she will. So she's very good to get back to us.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. I think we will just move forward. I think so we had some financial and facility consent items that I believe the committee did not discuss. In item 15, does anybody want to poll any of the 5 items that are under the facility consent? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Mr. Hoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Shaft?
Shaft votes yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Dr. Jelmstead?
Yes.
Ms. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Espegard? Board Chair Diedrich?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Item 16, authorize North Dakota State College of Science to increase spending for the renovation of the NDSCS football complex project. Dr. Richmond, would you like to address the board?
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. Chancellor Skogan wanted me to be sure we were all on the same page with this program, and this project is the project that won't go away. We originally had approval granted to us to do this project during the 62nd legislative session. During the interim following that session, we went to the budget section twice to request a change in the funding method of this project. We were denied the last time on a tied vote. We then presented the funding method to the 63rd legislative session, this past session, and we were granted approval to move forward with this project. This project uses no state funds, was intended to use state funds. The current funding model is to use a portion of auxiliary funds created through student fees and dining services, and then private fundraising. When we opened the bids this winter, we were $150,000 short of what we had authorization to use. So what we're presenting here is a request for authorization to go before the budget section in June to increase authorization of $150,000. The $150,000 will come from privately raised funds that we already have in hand. In fact, we've increased our fundraising efforts that it will lower the expectation coming from the student fees auxiliary funds than what we had anticipated. Having discussed a potential way to expedite this, I had conversations with Representative Delzer, Representative Carlson, and Representative Williams, all of which sit on the budget section. They could not share with me a way to expedite this. However, they did feel that if you allow us to come before their committee in June, that we'll not receive any problems in passing this time, because there are no, again, never was state funds, but we're not even increasing the demand on the student amount. The good news is the contractors that will be used for this project have they've assured us their price will not go up if we can get approval in June. The bad news is by waiting till June to start the project, it's not going to be finished in time for the football season. So our public and our stadium is used by both the high school and us. So the public facilities may not be ready for this coming fall season for our spectators at both the high school and college games. And with that, I'd entertain any questions.
Board members?
Football facilities are obviously very important to university.
Obviously.
Thank you, Mr. Morton.
And the community.
And there, that's good. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
Thank you.
Dr. Johnstead?
Yes.
Ms. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mr. Espegard? Mr. Shaft?
Shaft votes yes.
Mr. Hofferth?
Yes.
Board Chair Diedrich?
Yes. Item 17 is the Espegard nominations and recommendations.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
The State Board of Agricultural Research and Education conducts a process by which they nominate folks to the membership of their board, and they have an interview process, and then in your package are the letters that come to us for these nominations and for your approval. And just to let you know a little bit about what's happening here. Mark Birdsall will be taking the place of Paul Langseth, who is leaving the board at the end of June. Lance Gullison will take the place of Doyle Lance, who will also be leaving at the end of June. Mike Belts will be reappointed for a second four-year term, and Joanne Rodenbiker will be reappointed for a second four-year term as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Skogan. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Devin. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Terry. Christy?
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mr. Hofferth?
Yes.
Mr. Shaft?
Shaft votes yes.
Dr. Johnstead?
Yes.
Ms. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Espegard? Board Chair Diedrich?
Yes. Okay. Moving on, board policy, first reading, item 18, NDUS, policy number 4. Mr. Sogsveen.
President Diedrich and members of the board, the proposed policy amendment is to clarify the probation period. The clarification is that the probation, 6-month probation period may not be shortened to be shorter than less than 6 months, but may be extended if appropriate. And that's a clarification. And one other clarification on the first line of 4.1, the word staff should be underlined. And so it's just submitted for the board's approval.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve first reading?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion on? Oh, okay.
Mr. Schaaf?
Shaft votes yes.
Mr. Hoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Dr. Johnstead?
Yes.
Ms. Reichert?
Yes.
Mr. Espegard? Board Chair Diedrich?
Yes. Okay. Other business. We are at the president's reports.
Well, actually,
Sorry.
if I could just ask, I know one of the policies that's under review is the IP policy, and I saw from the interim committee notes that was discussed there. Can we just get kind of a summary of where that's at?
The IP policy?
The intellectual property.
Members of the board, the IP policy 611.2 is the intellectual property policy. That was on the agenda in November, and it was removed from the agenda for further consideration. And there have been, there's been discussion on that for the past months, including recommendations from CCF as to possible amendments to that. We've been talking with Jason Jenkins, who was involved in prior discussions. He's the attorney, NDUS attorney at University of North Dakota. Chancellor Getz established a committee to update that policy in 2010. There were recommendations to update the policy. With Chancellor Getz leaving and there was a subsequent chancellor, it was dropped. We have reinstituted discussions of that. We will be reassembling the task force or the working group that worked on it, and hope to have a first reading draft in June.
Thank you.
It's a very interesting subject, and it was considered by the Higher Education Funding Committee earlier this week, and so there's a lot of interest in this.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. President's reports. Should we start with Stephen Shirley on? No? Nothing to add? Okay. Let's move down the line. Microphone.
It's green, it's on. Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity. Just two quick notes, and they both deal with what I believe is a tipping point to sustain North Dakota's economy, and that is its workforce. Again, as you move forward in your strategic planning session, I look forward to working with you in creating strategies that can utilize the university system as a magnet to attract more people to our great state. We simply do not have enough people, and it's not that we want everyone, we want them to be educated and well-trained to take the careers and the opportunities that exist today in North Dakota. So I look forward to working with you as we try to use the university system as that magnet. Second,
Internally, there has been some improvements. We've been working on a message, delivering that message in various communities throughout the state for a 4 or 5 year period of time. And it's what we've been calling grow your own. It is our belief that, and we get criticized because we don't produce enough electricians or enough land surveyors or enough plumbers and position them in various places throughout the state. But my message consistently has been for 4 or 5 years, you cannot expect me to go to Grand Forks to recruit a young person to move to Wahpeton for 2 years to get an education and then expect that person to move, where are we, to Dickinson. These local communities have to start to recruit their own. Send them to us to get educated to come back home. We now have a program in place that recently was announced and will be starting. The City of Carrington and their economic group. Jeremy Linderman is his name. He's the economic developer for the City of Carrington. Hearing our message has created a matching program with their local economic group to work with their local businesses to identify young people in their community, their local area. The matching program will sponsor the student to go to school in a technical area that they need back in their communities. What a novel idea. Finally, we have them understanding the concept of grow your own. I hope that this type of program can be modeled and upscaled throughout the state of North Dakota to help the critical issue that we are faced today in the workforce. Thank you.
Thank you. 3 quick things. Last week, the Higher Learning Commission was on our campus to make a recommendation, our new proposed nursing program, and it went very, very well. They are going to recommend full approval, so until we hear from the home office, it's not for final, but it went extremely well. Another thing is going to happen on our campus in the spring of 2015. We are going to host a Northern Plains Conference on Early British Literature. This is part of our program on campus to enhance the liberal arts. And as I've stated before, we've raised over $400,000 of private money on our campus to institute a leadership program for all our students. They have activities in their freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior years. And 2 weeks ago, we had author Dave Mitchell. He's the author of a book, Power of Understanding People. And these events come and go, but once in a while, one is special. This one seemed to be special. Really impacted the students. We had just many community people show up. It grew into something we really didn't expect. So this leadership program is really kicking off, and we're expecting some more private dollars coming in as this grows, because it's been very, very positive. So really proud of our people on campus who are doing these types of things. And I should mention our Cometeers. We're the Comets, but the Comet volunteers, we have about 30 people now who do volunteer work. They've made the local newspapers, radio, television, but this past spring break they took a show on the road nationally. They go to places and do things for people you just can't imagine. Very touching. But that's part of also the program of service learning and developing the character of our students as well. So things are alive and well, going well. And it's so fun to hear from the other campuses, the things going on these 11 campuses. We wrote them all down, the things these presidents have listed all year. What a list. It's unbelievable.
Thank you. Dr. Richmond and Dr. Hagan got me all wound up here. Something I highlighted to the interim committee 2 days ago, and it was really rather intriguing, was some press coverage we've received regarding the return on investment of higher education in the state of North Dakota. And although I'm going to talk about NDSU, I would suggest this is probably applicable to all the tiers of higher education in our state. The article was regarding a survey called Pay Scale, which has now been featured in The Economist. So if you weren't familiar with it before, that somewhat legitimates it, if you will. What it demonstrated was that the return on investment, in other words, simplifying it, what students put into their education versus what they get out on a 20-year period, NDSU was ranked the top college or university in our region, including the University of Minnesota. Well, that was pretty interesting, and again, I think we would find that across the board for higher education in the state of North Dakota. But I got interested and went into the survey and started looking, well, who do we beat outside of our region? Well, we were the best return on investment, not only in our region, but in Wyoming and Idaho and Washington and Oregon. And I kept going down the list. Well, it turned out we were the highest return on investment of any major public research university in the western or central part of the United States. Number 9 overall in the entire nation, 6 of those schools being on the East Coast, 2 in Texas. Not because they're more affordable, but because the pay scales in those areas are much higher than they are in North Dakota. I would argue if you adjusted for economic impact, you would find that we are literally one of the very best return on investment. And again, I would stress, I suspect we would find that against every tier in the higher education system. Just a reminder that our students are getting a phenomenal benefit at a very reasonable cost versus their peers anywhere in the nation. Thank you.
It's always difficult for a cell biologist to follow an economist. UND is very proud of its students. I'd like to comment a little bit on the Native students. They've just planned and executed a very successful timeout week and a Wachipi powwow. It was the most attended event of this kind, I think, in the history of the timeout week series. Undergraduate Research Day, which is also sponsored by our students, had a very, very successful completion. Well over 200 papers and presentations on campus. Engineering College hosted a national robotics competition, also equally successful. And I always have to comment about our music department. Our student, I'm going to say master chorale, you can correct me, I believe it's our main concert chorale. As to their own fundraising capabilities, we'll be taking many of our students, I think it's 45 or 50 students, to Cuba for performances in just a few days after graduation. It's great to recognize faculty achievement at the university. Dr. Santos Seelan has been awarded the highest distinction on our campus, the Chester Fritz Distinguished Professor Award this year. And we're welcoming a new administrative officer for diversity, Dr. Sandra Murray. The university also continues to collaborate with the leadership of Grand Forks and with the University of the North Dakota State University and Fargo in building economic development in the Red River Valley. This is an exciting enterprise, and I hope we'll be able to have something, very positive outcome to talk about in a few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a short comment. The applications for new students are double what they were in 2013 at this point. So we are kind of at loss at this time to pinpoint why that might be, but we think it's because we're doing some things right, and we are hopeful that that trend continues through fall semester. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last time I've been at Jenkinson State was the last board meeting, and I think they might have been a couple years ago, and I just want to comment to DC, what a beautiful campus you have. It took me 2.5 hours to get here. Last time I was here, it took me 2 hours. So traffic activity continues to develop. People think that, and I would have told you last year, has it been slowing down? And I would have said yes. Has it tapered? I would have said yes. Construction has increased prices about 12%. And if you remember 2 years ago, I brought you some figures in regard to new employees, new businesses, and average pay scale. I was also able to do that by county across the state. And the bottom line is what happens in Williston tends to have a wave effect for the rest of the community. So I hear a lot of conversation about the ability to predict capital project costs. I'm here to tell you no one can predict capital project costs. I thought I could do it, but with a 12% increase this past year, it is unbelievable. So there are issues and activities still taking place that we have not been able to measure or gather, and it's impacting our colleges. And I fully anticipate that my fellow presidents will come to you with additional capital projects and concerns because we've been doing it for the last 5 years. And again, what happens here waves out to the rest of the state. It's an exciting opportunity for the state, but again, it's an economic challenge for the colleges that it's trying to serve this community. Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity. 2 quick things. One is that we're in the process of gearing up to deliver our law enforcement peace officer training program to the western part of the state again. We're currently in Minot spring semester, and they've asked us to come to Bismarck and deliver it as well. So we're in the process of working those details out, and we're also responding to a request from Walter Hospital to deliver some LPN nursing to Grand Forks. So we're hoping to help meet the labor market needs in our region.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Last evening we had our 45th annual student recognition ceremony. So we honored over 200 exceptional students for academic achievement, involvement in student government, and all-around excellence. This is a program sponsored by our foundation. And then secondly, we're working with the Bank of North Dakota on a comeback scholarship program, pilot program. It's a scholarship program focused on student completion, whereby students who have opted out for at least a year can come back, receive scholarship, and complete their degree. We think it's a great opportunity. We've got a lot of students who would fit that criteria. Looking forward to see how it works.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm Dick Jenkins reporting for Dr. David Fuller. Just want to bring you up to date on what's happening this weekend at Minot State. We have tomorrow morning our Board of Regents meeting. Our board is an advisory group and we'll be meeting on our campus. And then that is followed by the start of our powwow, which is a 2-day activity on our campus. And at that powwow on Saturday night, Dr. Fuller and his wife will be honored with a special honor dance. And then also on Friday night, we have our gala, which is our Alumni Association's big fundraiser on campus. And that event will be held at the Holiday Inn in town. And then also on Saturday night, our Minot Symphony will be playing their final concert of the season. So it's a busy time on our campus. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and everyone here, we want to welcome you to the other time zone. The last time the board met at Jenkinson State was September 15th, 2011. It was about 3 weeks after the then chancellor and that board asked me to come out and spend what we thought might be a short period of time at this wonderful place. We were everyone here was afraid and worried, and I want to tell you this institution is radically and dramatically different in a very positive way than it was the last time this board was here. And some wonderful things have happened. Since we've got a couple of minutes, I'd like to introduce to you a few of the people who have helped make this happen. Assisting the IT folks, we have Anthony Willer and Chrissy Kilwine. Raise your hand. They work in the area of our distance learning as well as instructional systems development, managing the learning management system, and do a wonderful job for the entire campus. Beginning on the far side, I'd like Jordan Cifuentes. Please stand up, Jordan. Jordan is the president of the Student Senate at Jenkinson State, so is our student body president. This year we asked the presidents of the 3 senates to become part of the president's cabinet, and that has been a great and wonderful addition. Marie, if you would stand. This is Marie Moe. Marie is the Executive Director of Enrollment Services and Communications, which here during part of that time helped very much in the communications that we did, and has stepped up, and we're seeing very, very positive things happening enrollment-wise, just as Ken reported from Dakota College. Cynthia, if you would stand. 2 years ago this September, we were thrilled to recruit a person. It's the first person who's ever held the title of provost at Jenkinson State University. So this is our provost, vice president for academic affairs, Dr. Cynthia Pemberton. She joined us from Idaho State University, had a distinguished academic career, also a wonderful career in athletics, both as an All-American competitor in swimming and then as a coach for women and men's swimming teams, and also as an athletic administrator, and has been a key part as we have looked to put things back together and get things in a very positive way moving forward. Dawn. This is Dr. Dawn Olson. Background in education, has actually been engaged at a couple of other of the institutions that are part of the system. Dawn was in the Department of Education, teacher education, doing a wonderful job. And a couple of years ago was asked to assume the role of Dean of the College of Education, Business, and Applied Sciences, and has been doing a great job in that role. Mick, if you would stand. There was the nice comment from Dr. Nadolny about facilities. That is a long standing tradition and an ethic that's part of this institution. When I first got here and went and met faculty across the campus and asked them what did they want me to know, one of the things they commented about was the facilities we walk into and the grounds we walk onto are pleasant and welcoming each and every day. This is an alum of Jenkinson State University, Mick Riesinger. Mick joined us as our facilities director in December of 2013, but grew up in that ethic. He's a native of Jenkinson and as an alum, and has picked that up, and you can see the evidence of that here. So those are some of the folks with whom I have the privilege to walk each and every day, elbow to elbow. And these folks have made a phenomenal difference in this institution, as well as a great group of faculty and the remainder of our staff, and a wonderful student body that hung with this place when people could have abandoned it. Let me make a comment about the rest of the day. All of the, as I understand, the board and the presidents will be participating in the AGB training this afternoon. That's scheduled at 1 o'clock at the West River Community Center, which is north and west of the campus. What we have planned, and we're actually running a few minutes ahead of time. Congratulations on the efficiency with which the board conducted its business this morning. But somewhere in about 10:45, a bus should pull up out front, and we are inviting the board, or we're inviting anyone in the room to join us, and we're going to take a tour of the greater Jenkinson area so you can actually see what is occurring here. I want to offer that invitation on behalf, and I'd like to ask Senator if you would stand up. I think everyone knows this is Senator Rich Wardner, who represents the 37th District, which includes the campus of Jenkinson State University. Senator Wardner lives a couple of blocks north of here. Senator Wardner has been a distinguished member of the Legislative Assembly and currently serves as the Senate Majority Leader. And all of you have gotten to know him and the great dignity with which he approaches that job and the great leadership that he provides. So Senator Wardner and I invite you to join that tour. We will also, for the first of it, be joined by Reed Raymond, who is the president of St. Joseph's Hospital. We'll see the new hospital under construction as we go on that tour. Madam Chair, that kind of ends my comments. I would offer, because it probably will be about half an hour before the bus arrives, so that you'll know, we'll go on the bus tour. We're anticipating it'll be an hour and 20 minutes to an hour and a half. We'll come back here, have lunch here, and then everyone can move from here up to the training session. For the next few minutes, should anyone want to, I would offer to walk them up to May Hall and give them a quick run through and an impromptu, unannounced visit to an interesting program and the approach that our faculty in the accounting department or accounting area have opened up that is doing some rather amazing things. So should anybody want to do that, let me catch me over here. We've got refreshments, so we'll catch up with you for sure on the tour. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would recommend following DC and seeing what they're doing in that teaching lab. It's just fantastic. Okay, with that, and I have a motion.
Madam Chair, may we talk about the future meetings here for just a minute?
Okay.
We're very excited. On May 29th will be our next board meeting, And board member Kathleen Nessett has offered to host us at her facility up in Tioga. And for folks that have not been up in the we'll call it the Nodalny corner of North Dakota, if you haven't been up there, it's the transformation has been amazing. And I know we're taking a tour today to take a look at the growth down here in the Jenkinson area. And I know that Ms. Nessett is planning on doing a similar tour up in the Tioga area to show how the oil production has impacted that area and all the development that's up there, and it's a real eye-opening experience. Christy will be getting information out on that meeting here as we approach that date for reservations and so forth, and we certainly hope that folks can join us on what will be a really interesting tour there, and then of course our regular board meeting that we will have at the Nessett Consulting facility up there.
Thank you, Dr. Scogan. Anything else? Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
Yes, Grant.
What time do you want us back on the line then? 1 o'clock?
Yep.
1 o'clock Central?
No, 1 o'clock Mountain. So 2 o'clock your time. Yes, 2 o'clock your time, Central.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant.